Hey guys and ladies, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a family portrait, a ranked family portrait on probably the best known house that I have yet to rank my family portraits on. I've done all of the big houses that you can kind of think of. I've ranked the Diors, the YSLs, the Creeds, the Rojas, the Amouages, all the big ones that a lot of people request for, except this is the final one. Well, one of the final main ones, and it is Hermes. So we are going to rank my favorite Hermes perfumes from my least favorite to wear to my favorite. There's 17 in all. Most of them are full bottles. Some of them are samples, though, that I will be doing videos on. And this should be a lot of fun because I think Hermes is a great brand for perfume lovers. They're a brand that, you know, really caters to people that like perfume that is high quality. And they've kind of created that air of exclusivity about themselves on one hand. And on the other hand, they have a massive hit in Terre Hermes. So they kind of have this duality, this dichotomy going about them where on one side, they kind of want to be standoffish and they want to be, you know, oh, you can't even buy this bag even if you have the money because you haven't worked your way up to it. You know, you have to unlock it as if you're playing some sort of video game. When I first heard about that, by the way, my jaw almost hit the ground, that if you walked into an Hermes store with $100,000 and said, I want to buy a, you know, a Kelly bag or whatever it is, they'll say, nope, sorry, can't do it. You got to work your way up to it. You got to buy the gloves and the socks and the perfume and the hats and the belts and all that stuff, and then after you buy some of our lower graded stuff, then we'll unlock the bag for you. And I was like, wow, really? So that came as a little bit of surprise. So on one hand, they're kind of a brand that wants to remain for the elites. They don't want everyone just walking around with a Hermes handbag. And on the other hand, they're selling fragrances at $100 a pop, you know, for stuff like Terre Hermes. And, you know, they had a big hit. Jean-Claude Elena created a big hit with Terre. And so there's these forces that kind of pull in opposite directions with the brand of Hermes. But I still really like the brand. I like what they do. Even though Jean-Claude Elena is gone, I have my favorites, and you guys know, if you know my taste, this list actually should come as no surprise to a lot of you, but it's a fun way to talk about a lot of fragrances and, you know, put them in an easy to digest list and an easy place to kind of reference back to. So before we get into the top 17 though, let's do a quick unboxing. It's not really an unboxing. It's thanks to P. Jefferson, who you will see her in the comments sometime. She sent me this lovely little couple samples to sniff, a couple things I've never sniffed before. So again, special thank you to anyone who's ever sent me anything. Truly, I mean, part of the reason why I can continue to do these videos and stuff like that is thanks to your generosity. So what this is Neroli Outrenoir. So I've got some Guerlains that I plan on talking about on the channel very soon. So a couple of them. This is one that was kind of requested by a couple people. Apparently Neroli Outrenoir is a favorite of a few big-time frag heads. And I've got some more Guerlains that we will talk about on the channel very soon. For example, I have a comparison video between the vintage Mitsuko 1950s extract, thanks to Rachel, and the EDP and the EDT. We also have some hard to find Guerlains. One is Mayotte. And these are thanks to Tim, I believe. The other is La Initiale. And I think Rachel sent me a little sample of this one as well. And then Mademoiselle Guerlain is another one. So we'll do a live stream where we kind of talk about these. I already have a video up on Oud Cole, and inside of the video on Oud Cole is an amazing vintage unboxing where we actually unboxed one of the Hermes fragrances that's going to show up at the very top of this list. So go check that out. I kind of hid that unboxing in that Oud Cole video, not on purpose, by mistake. It just worked out that way. You know, if you want to kind of hear my thoughts on Oud Kohl, you can go check that one out. We also have Cuir Beluga, which I have yet to smell. I've been holding on to these for kind of a live stream where we can talk about a bunch of Guerlains all at once. Iris Terrefi is another one. Bois de Harmonie, I've never smelled still. I'm holding on to these for a live stream, and now we can add Neroli Outrenoir to the list, which apparently is a fragrance that came out in Neroli Outrenoir 2016. It was a creation by Thierry Vassar and Delphine Jelk, and it is Petit Grand, which is kind of the twigs and you know, sticks and you know, bits of the orange blossom tree, and bergamot with orange blossom, neroli, smoked tea, ambrette seed, myrrh, and moss. And I've actually heard really good things about this one. Some of the people that I really trust, like for example, AC from the channel Smells Good. This is a favorite of his, Neroli Outrenoir. So I'm excited to get to sniff this and see what I think. I'm excited to sniff all of these. So this will be 4, you know, brand new Guerlains. Well, really 7 brand new Guerlains. It'll make a hell of a live stream. Maybe we can split it up. Maybe we can do like 4 in one day and 3 in another, and add another, you know, another brand in there to kind of make up the some of the lost ground. But yes, this will be great. So thank you, P. Jefferson. Thank you very much. It is much appreciated. You guys are amazing, and I really appreciate everything that you do for the channel. It makes a big difference because, I mean, you know, samples are expensive. Getting things mailed nowadays is expensive. And so, you know, to anyone who's sent me anything, a big thank you. And if you've sent me something and I have not gotten to it yet on the channel, I promise I will. It's just a matter of time. So it could be tomorrow, it could be a year from tomorrow, but it will happen. Okay, and you can see all these samples building up, you know, and whenever I do one, some of the samples that I actually get to talk about, that I have talked about, I move them away. So those are like still to be discussed. So there's a lot of content coming on the channel, not to mention all of the individual bottles I have that I want to do full reviews on. A lot of work. You guys are keeping me busy. So thanks again, P. Jefferson. Very much appreciate it. Let's do scent of the day next before we hop into this countdown list. And this is this is deep in the heart of Ram Duck territory. This is the kind of vintage stuff that I love finding. I'm wearing it today for the very first time. I would consider this kind of this leathery, animalic. Oh God, it is so good. It's a beautiful spring day while everyone else is probably wearing, you know, their fresh colognes and all that stuff. I'm wearing this. This is from the house of Emilio Pucci, and this is called Signor Vivara. Signor Vivara from 1970. Discontinued, okay? There's a couple different versions of this that you can try to look for. And this was very kindly sent to me by Cullen from Japan. So again, thank you very much. I wouldn't have been able to experience this without you. And I instantly want a bottle. This is going on the instant bottle list. It's just a matter of kind of discovering which one I want. Because there's different types and all that stuff. And just to give you an idea, kind of the area, the ballpark that it falls into, imagine you're smelling something like a little bit of Bandy. That's kind of the leather, okay? A little bit of Bandy. So Bandy was created for women. Imagine like you made a 1970s masculine where you start to incorporate some of the green bits that the 70s were known for. And there are green bits in Bandy as well, but the green touches here seem a little bit different. The opening seems a little fresher, like you get a little more of this aldehydic citrus bergamot that tends to linger a little longer, whereas Bandy is just like a head first dive into it. There's no foreplay, no screwing around with Bandy. And you get some more like carnation and iris and jasmine and cinnamon and stuff like that in Signor Vivara compared to Bandy. But really the fragrance is all about leather and oak moss and castoreum and the animalic bits of the leather. It's just a beautiful fragrance. So imagine you took a fragrance like Etros Goma. Someone was actually asking me to show this a little bit closer on the stream yesterday. And this is what the vintage bottles of Etros Goma look like right here. So Etros Goma, and imagine that you mixed Etros Goma with Bandi, and that's kind of getting you in the ballpark of Emilio Pucci, Signor Vivara. Beautiful fragrance. What a find. I love finding stuff like this. Instantly, the first thing I do, tell Rich Mitch, Rich, have you smelled this? It's time to go get it. It's another one on the radar. And that's what I'm telling you guys about these vintage fragrances is it is, even for people like us who are, I would consider us pretty knowledgeable about vintage perfumes, there's always more to discover. There's just a cornucopia of vintage fragrances out there to go discover. So if you're a discoverer like me and you enjoy the, you enjoy the task of finding new fragrances and getting to know them and all that good stuff, right? And that really gets you going, is discovering new things that you love and then hunting them down. Vintage perfume is such a great hobby because there's just so much and so much good stuff, you know. The fact that there's still stuff like this out there that I've never smelled or I don't have a bottle of gets me excited. So, yes, I'm very excited about wearing Signor Vivara for the very first time today. What a fragrance. Don't know who the perfumer is, but this is the first time I've ever worn anything from the house of Emilio Pucci. So, good stuff. All right, let's get on with the list. So, this is going to be a top 17, like I said, and I rank these kind of in my favorite order to wear. Okay, so I'm not saying technically that number 1 is better than number 17 or 16 as a perfume. I'm just saying my personal taste, the ones I like to reach for, you know, my favorite fragrances to wear. This is my ranked list of the House of Hermes, and just kind of a quick overview, if you will, for the house. If you guys aren't familiar with it, here's a little blurb from Parfumo. It says, the French brand Hermes is one of the first luxurious top-notch brands which started an online trade and surprisingly started from producing harnesses and saddles. Founded in 1837, the family-owned company now operates worldwide from Paris, and in addition to wearable fashion, it is widely known for both Birkin and Kelly bags. So the Birkin bag is the one that Eau de Hermes was supposed to smell like. And I think that's the Birkin bag, I think, is kind of the top bag. I'm not a bag connoisseur. I didn't even know for the longest time that, excuse me, I didn't even know for the longest time that you couldn't just walk in and buy a Birkin bag if you had the cash, that you had to kind of build your way up to it by buying other things. And so the Birkin bag and the Kelly bag were named in honor of Grace Kelly and Jane Birkin, respectively. The fragrances from the House of Hermes alone are divided into 6 different categories. In addition to fragrances for men and women, the selection also includes fundamental and exclusive aromas, as well as fragrances for special events. In addition, the large selection of fine fragrances is emphasized by many different designs in the flacons. They have beautiful flacons, I think, with a choice of playful minimalist or cubist shapes. The bottles are intended to create visual links to fragrant contents. And in terms of aromas, Hermes follows the natural fragrances with varying degrees of exoticism. For example, the men's perfume Terre Hermes exudes benzoin and shiso, all in addition to grapefruit and cedarwood aromas. Eau de Merveille, which is a line I've never sniffed before, for women is dominated by oak moss, cedarwood, and fir, while Elixir de Merveille, also for women, exudes an aroma of oak, orange, cedar, vanilla, and incense. I want to smell both of those. Many of the brand's fragrances are also available as gift set, travel sets, and lavish combinations. And for collectors and lovers, Hermes has ready the collection colognes called Parfum Jardins, whose flacons, 50 to 100 mils, are matched in shape and color. Okay, so cool little overview of the house. And, you know, I can tell you that they've always been kind of a exclusive type house. You know, if you were somebody who was anybody, you would go to Hermes and they would like make you a saddle back in the day, or, you know, and it would be like handmade. It would be made for you, for your ranch, or you would go and tell them, hey, I need 100 saddles for my ranch, and they would make each one for you. They were that level of quality. Like, I think of Hermes saddles and leather goods as like the Rolls Royce of leather, right? And the fragrances at the top of this list, actually, I think the top 3 are all leather fragrances. And Hermes makes an amazing leather note. And I just love the history. I love the brand. They are a little pretentious, I would say. But that's, I think, to be expected. They're trying to keep this air of sophistication about the brand. They don't want it to devolve into, you know, they don't want it to lose that status of that status symbol. Hermes is a huge status symbol in society, and I think they worked hard to kind of build that. So let's talk about their perfumes. So number 17 is actually a fragrance I'm thinking about selling because I can't wear this. Every time I spray it, it gives me a headache. Every single time. And I've probably sprayed it 5 times without fail. Something in this gives me a headache. And I don't know if maybe the vintage version won't, but I don't think I would even go for it. It's last on the list for a reason. And it is Rouge Hermes. So Rouge Hermes, and you can see the back. The way that Eugene describes this is a floral with teeth. Like if you want a floral that has, God, I can't believe I just smelled that. Oh, so if you want a floral with some serious teeth, some fangs, this is it. It's rose, ylang, iris, sandalwood, cedar, resins, vanilla, labdanum, and myrrh. I don't know what it is about this, but without fail. I like the smell. It just hits me right between the eyes. There's something about it. It came out in the year 2000. I don't know who the perfumer is, but I think this would smell amazing on a woman. It's just, even for reference, I don't think there's any reason for me to keep this, as I have a really hard time wearing this. It's just so big and loud and floral, and, you know, just one of the strongest. I mean, I like the florals kind of underneath the resins and the wood. But it's just gigantic. It is a monster fragrance, and it's honestly, it's not for me. So Rouge Hermes comes in at number 17. Number 16 is what many consider one of the, you know, greatest feminine fragrances of all time. People always put this up there with the Chanel number 5s of the world, and many people compare it to this. It gets compared a lot to this, which is Amouage Gold Woman. And this is an older bottle back when it was Sultanate of Oman owned. This is an older tester, basically. And so Caleche gets compared a lot to Amouage Gold Woman because they are both the same perfumer, Guy Robert. And I was actually talking with Yura today, and he said that there is a source inside of the Robert family that claims that Guy Robert actually made much more fragrances than he gets credit for. So he was saying that there is now kind of a big push to give Guy Robert credit for number 19 and Pour Monsieur, that Henri Robert gets credit on paper, but Guy Robert was actually a big part of making those fragrances. And so this is a vintage bottle, and you can see Guy Robert's style and fingerprints all over this. And I think this is a beautiful floral chypre. I think I prefer Amouage Gold a little bit more, but I really like what Caleche does. It's just, I don't wear it hardly ever. I have it more for reference, I would say. And it's you can tell that aldehydic floral thing. You know, Guy Robert was obsessed with one perfume from the past. He kept trying to make it over and over and over again. And to be fair, the perfume that he was obsessed with is one of the greatest fragrances of all time. It is Lanvin's Arpege. And so Arpege came out in the 20s. This is the Extrait. This is really beautiful, actually. And if you've ever smelled this, especially a vintage bottle of this, you will see kind of the style that Guy Robert was so obsessed with. This aldehydic floral with this kind of, you know, a base that had some heft to it, you know. There was a lot going on here. There's all kind of notes in here, all kind of florals, you know, from the normal, the iris and rose and ylang to the exotic, honeysuckle and all this stuff. And you get a little bit of that in here, but in Caleche, I feel like you get a little bit more of this fresh opening with the aldehydes and lemon and neroli. Neroli is a very expensive flower that can come off kind of smelling very clean, almost like a clean sheet sometimes, right? Like laundered sheets. And it has this cleanliness to it, but it's a very expensive flower. People don't realize how expensive it is to use Neroli, high quality Neroli in a composition. The modern Neroli that you smell, a lot of times I feel is cheaper, synthetic, and you can smell it in the composition. High class Neroli usually doesn't give off as much of that laundry detergent feel as the synthetic stuff that you smell in many designers nowadays. There's a beautiful note of cypress in here, which I have to say, I'm a big fan of cypress. We talked about it a little bit, I think, in our video yesterday when we ranked the fragrances from 1976 to 1978, and Halston Z14 came up, and there's a beautiful cypress note in Z14. And this has the same, a giant floral heart, just like you would imagine iris, lily of the valley, gardenia, jasmine, rose, ylang, with a base of oak moss, sandalwood, amber, cedar, musk, tonka bean, and vetiver. And so, you can almost trace the lineage right from Lanvin straight to something like Caleche. And there was actually an Hermes before Caleche called Dobles. And Dobles is like a, unicorn of unicorns. People pay $5,000 a bottle for it, or crazy amounts of money. Maybe more even, I don't know. It never comes up for sale. Not legitimate, true, well-kept bottles anyways. You hardly ever see it. And when they do, they want big, big money. But it's supposed to be somewhat similar to Caleche. And, it's a floral chypre with some powdery aspects. And it's nice. I enjoy it. But again, it's not my favorite to wear. I just don't reach for it as much. That's why it's at number 16. Number 15 is a fragrance that I have one of these little, what is this, a 10 mil or a 15 mil? It's a 15 mil. And it's perfect for this time of year. Spring, summer is kind of when you wear it. This is the only one from this line that I have. I wouldn't mind having a bottle of Unjardin sur le Nil, but the one I have is Unjardin sur le Toit. And Unjardin sur le Toit is a 2011 release, and this is a Jean-Claude Elena. And this is basically an apple and a pear fragrance. So it's very fresh and fruity. So you get the apple, you get the pear, and it's kind of supported by the woods of each of those fruits. So very interesting concept, and only Jean-Claude Elena, I think, can really make this concept work so well like it does here. The freshness, kind of this fresh, grassy, woody, ethereal nature of the fragrance tends to come through. And so there's apple and pear on top, but again, it's supported by apple wood and pear wood tree. And those are the woods that support the fruit. So it's actually, it's conceptually built very well. And I think it's a really good, fresh, green, fruity fragrance. It's just, these type of fragrances don't excite me, is the problem. No matter how good they are, I'm always wishing I was in something else. I'm wishing I was wearing stuff like Emilio, Pucci, Signor, Vivara, like I am today, right? Leathery, castoreum, animalic. That's my style. I love stuff like this. And so that's why this is at number 15, is that if this is your thing, if you can't wait for spring and summer to wear these type of fragrances, well, this could be number 1 on your list. I mean, it's that good. And everything about this little series that Hermes does is, because on the top of the roof of the Hermes building is a garden. And this line is actually inspired by said garden, right? And Hermes, of course, kind of does things differently. They don't do things like other brands. So Jean-Claude Elena kind of worked at his own speed during these years. He was known as a little bit of a recluse in the industry. So he would, live in the woods by himself with his assistant. He would make fragrances. He'd throw out the stuff that he didn't think was good, and he would just, work at his own speed. And I've come to really admire Jean-Claude Elena. When I first got into fragrances, I thought I wasn't a fan. Like, I thought that he wasn't for me as a perfumer, because his style is very what many would call minimalist. Now, he doesn't like that word, because he thinks that it makes his fragrances seem light and boring, and they're not. But I know what they mean. They have these kind of watercolory soft. You have to really pay attention, right? It's not going to reach out and punch you in the face. It's not a 70s and 80s style. That's not his style at heart. Now, he made a flanker that's like that, but, you know, his fragrances are, and we're going to get to some of them here as well, of course, but his fragrances are usually very airy, watercolory, you know, that kind of thing. It's a different style with him, and I've come to appreciate it. Unjardin sur le Toit plays that role very well. And then there's a Maurice Roussel creation that Rachel sent me a couple decants of. So I will do a video on this one very soon. This is called 24 Faubourg. And 24 Faubourg came out in the mid-90s. It actually came out in 1995, if I'm not mistaken. And there was an eau de toilette and an eau de parfum. And I think that the notes were basically the same between the two. One was literally just an eau de toilette, and one was an eau de parfum. And so 24 Faubourg, there was also a pure parfum, I think, which I've never smelled. But it's kind of a spicy floral chypre style, if you will. It's a chypre style fragrance with a focus on this floral peach, you know, peachy, fruity thing. And it's done very well. There's some, there is some ties back to Caleche, for example. There's gardenia in here, which is used in Caleche. But there's a little bit of a base, and I like the fact that there's a base to this fragrance. So it's not just kind of this ethereal floral fragrance, right? It is floral dominated, but underneath there's some woody elements. You get the patchouli, which is very green. You get the amber and sandalwood and vanilla. And the vanilla does play a pretty decent role in the perfume, and so does this muskiness. And if you know Maurice Roussel's style, especially with what he ended up releasing a couple years after this with Musc Ravageur and stuff like that, you'll kind of sense some of that Maurice Roussel musky style underneath it all. He hasn't really unleashed it yet, but it's there. And so that's kind of what's interesting about 24 Faubourg to me. Not something I would go run out and buy and wear for me, but I bet it smells amazing on a woman. And then at number 13, and this is the one where people are probably going to kind of go like this to me, but I have to put this here because this, I struggle wearing this. And if you've seen my lists, either creations by Guy Robert or whatever it is, you've noticed this is low on the list, but it has to be here because it's really truly how I feel. And so at number 13 we have Equipage. Now I have a vintage bottle, and I've heard a lot of people say that the vintage bottle is much harder to take. There's something about it that is just off, you know, like it's not like the juice is turned off, but like there's things in here that turn you off. They put you off. You're not as easy to accept it. It almost comes across as having this feeling of elderliness, of you know, being on like your deathbed to me or something like that. I know that sounds crazy, but it does. It has this very very ancient feel to it. Not in a good way either. I struggle with this version of Equipage. And many people have said, Ramsey, you have to try the new one. And I'm looking. I don't see a good deal on it. But I would love to get a bottle of the new one just to see, you know, if it's true that the one with the black cap, the modern bottle, is easier to wear, that they've kind of made some changes. But it opens up with aldehydes, clary sage, mace, which is kind of like the lace around the nutmeg, bergamot, orange, and rosewood. And usually I love rosewood. Cinnamon, carnation, pine needle, jasmine, lily of the valley with oak moss, musk, patchouli, tonka bean, vanilla, and vetiver. And it really does give a feeling of being outside, maybe standing in an ancient place. I don't know, maybe standing in a place with a lot of history, but you're outdoors, you're with trees and grass, and there is a leathery undertone. Even though there's no leather, there is this spicy, leathery undertone. There's pine needles. I like what it turns into after a couple hours. The first couple hours is a tough wear for me, so maybe I will get the modern just to do a comparison video and see. because the flanker of this, Equipage Geranium, is much, much higher on the list. I really like Equipage Geranium, but the original Equipage I struggle with, and that is a Guy Robert from 1970. Okay, next on the list, we have number 12, and again, beats it by one place. It's Amazon. So Amazon comes in one spot higher than Equipage, and Amazon is marketed towards women, but I think this is easily totally unisex. I think this is much more unisex than the first three or four women fragrances we talked about. I think this is much more accessible for men to wear over Rouge Hermes, Caleche, 24 Faubourg. Amazon was built in 1974. Maurice Morin was the perfumer. And this is, the reason I say that is it's much more built in the 70s style of feminine fragrances, if you will. And what I mean by that is it's very green. So green fragrances kind of dominated in the 70s. Think Chanel number 19, or think Estee Lauder's private collection. Yeah, private collection. Yes, private collection. And, you know, think of those green fragrances of the 70s, and it's here. But there's also this pissy, sour aspect to it. There's cassis, there's iris and jasmine and rose and lily of the valley. But there's also geranium, there's oak moss, there's cedarwood, there's vetiver, and there's amber. Very manly notes, right? You get geranium a lot of times in masculine fragrances. And so you get some geranium here. There's also hyacinth. So there's this, I would say, this gender tug of war in this fragrance, but completely right down the middle for me. This smells amazing when I wear it. I bet you it would smell amazing on a woman. I don't think I've ever smelled this on a woman, but I'm just imagining it would smell amazing on a woman. And Amazon is apparently still available for purchase. I don't know what the new bottles are like, but this vintage bottle that I have is absolutely stunning. You can kind of see the 90 degrees right there and the older packaging. Beautiful stuff. Big fan of Amazon. So Amazon comes in at number 12. Number 11 is a decant. And actually, if I had to buy another Hermes fragrance right now, this would be it. I would buy this. But again, hard to find a good deal on one of the bottles I want. I'd want the one with the, it looks like kind of a, stirrup to put your foot in, like you're riding a horse. This is called Gallo de Hermes. And I can't remember who sent me this. This could have been Heinke even. It's been a while since I've talked about this. Gallo de Hermes is a 2016 release. And I think it was the first release by Christine Nagel after she took over for Jean-Claude Elena. And this is considered a leathery, fruity fragrance with leather, rose, quince, and saffron. And I've worn this to bed a couple times now, and I'm really enamored with this. Like, I think I want a bottle. I just don't want to pay what they're asking, as usual. But I like the fragrance. It's my kind of fragrance. It's I like the leather note. I like what she did with the fruit. That quince note in the top is done very well, and I like the saffron and rose interplay. And I like the fact there's a little bit of skank, but this is a very wearable leather to me. I would turn the animalics way up on this. If this was a fragrance, made for me, I would turn the animalics way up. But I think she did a great job making it still interesting to somebody like myself, but also very wearable to maybe the average public, John Q public, if you will. And so Gallo de Hermes is very high on my wish list of Hermes purchases at some point in the future. That's number 11. Number 10 is a flanker of Terre Hermes, and it's actually the very first flanker that Jean-Claude Elena put out. So the original came out in 2006. And then in 2009, he didn't bother with an eau de parfum, interestingly enough. For whatever reason, he decided to go straight to a pure parfum. And this is an original 2009 bottle. of Terre Hermes Parfum. And this is number 10, so we're in the top 10 now. Terre Hermes Parfum. And the Parfum is exactly what you would expect it to be. So it kind of keeps that citrusy, dirty orange, grapefruit thing, but the woods and the earthy elements are ramped up through the roof. So there's a cedar wood note, there's a shisho note, there's benzoin, and I get a big dose of vetiver in here, of course. Even though vetiver is not a listed note in the Parfum, I get a huge dose of vetiver in the Parfum, and it just is this, you know, much thicker, heavier, more resinous. You know, if you just wish, if you don't like how Terre Hermes sometimes has this ethereal quality where it comes and it goes and you can't smell it anymore on yourself after a couple hours, but people can still smell you, and you want to be the one to kind of smell yourself, this is the one I think to really look for. It's Terre Hermes for the cooler weather. It I think can be worn at any time, but the Pure Parfum I think is really much more geared towards situations where you want it to be, you want it to stay with you longer, and you don't want that ethereal quality where it kind of comes and goes. It doesn't smell like there's as much ISOE super in this either. Terre Hermes, the original, has a huge slug of ISOE super, and so you can see right here, if you're kind of into the batch codes, you can see right there, 9LAA1. So this is a 2009 bottle, and I'm very lucky to have it. I hear that this has gone through multiple reformulations, just like the Terre Hermes, the traditional EDT, and big fan of the Parfum. And then at number 9, we've got a very underrated fragrance, something that I think deserves more spotlight. I really enjoy this, and I know I think it's synthetic. I don't think it's, you know, I don't think it's like the best made fragrance ever or anything like that, but the way that the community just ignores this fragrance, I don't understand at all. And this is a fragrance called Voyage de Hermes. And so it comes in this bottle that it sits like this on your shelf, but if you want to spray it, you flip it open. I love this bottle. I think it's really unique and cool. And this is the Parfum version, which came out in 2012. In 2010, the original Eau de Toilette came out. I decided to go with the Parfum because I like, again, the thicker, heavier aspect. Kind of like I started with the Parfum of Terre, and then I ended up working my way backwards. The Parfum Voyage de Hermes is the only one I have. I don't have the original Eau de Toilette. But this is kind of this woody, spicy fragrance that is Jean-Claude Elena in a bottle, basically, to me. Because it has this simplicity. When you look at it and you go, juniper berry, sandalwood, and amber. That's it. And then you smell it, though, and you realize that this is a complex fragrance. It's not just juniper, sandalwood, and amber. This fragrance starts to do this thing on my skin that I notice in a flanker of Equipage, which we'll talk about later on. But somehow he created this sandalwood accord. I don't know how he did it. I have no clue. I'm not a perfumer. I'm just a guy who loves fragrance. But it seems like he created this sandalwood accord that just almost acts like it's in like a vortex. And it's just constantly spinning, you know. And sometimes you get bits of the vortex over on the far end of you, and sometimes you get bits of the vortex close, but it's just constantly in motion, you know? And it's ever changing, like it's alive on your skin. And how he did that with a synthetic sandalwood note, I have no clue. I mean, this isn't going to recreate Mysore sandalwood of the past or anything like that, but the combination of the freshness of the juniper, which is beautiful in this fragrance, I must admit, and the sandalwood and the amber, that ambery mixed with that sandalwood that feels so alive for whatever reason. I don't know what he did, but I get the same thing with Equipage Geranium. So good. And I'm just shocked no one talks about this. Shocked. I mean, no one talks about it. Like, not sometimes people talk about it. No one does. Or when they do, they're like, oh, here's one that's kind of okay. I think this is really, really good and deserves more talk, personally. But just one man's opinion. Voyage de Hermes in the pure Parfum. And it's still available for purchase. Okay. Next on the list, we have number 8. And number 8 is my newest Hermes purchase. And this is the biggest bottle in my collection with a sprayer. Actually, this is the biggest bottle I've ever seen with a sprayer. This is the discontinued size of the 500 ml of Terre Hermes. And yes, this has a sprayer on a 500 ml bottle. No, it is not a factice. Don't ask. Yes, this is filled with Terre Hermes juice, eau de toilette. And this is a 2014 batch. So rumor is Terre Hermes has been reformulated. There's a lot of people that think that that has definitely happened. So I wanted an older bottle, and I basically got this for 300 bucks shipped, which I think is a steal because they're selling the new ones for, 100 mils for 130 or 150 or whatever it is. The flankers like Ogivre, which I've never smelled, similar thing. And it's just, I slowly came to appreciate Terre Hermes. I didn't think I liked it at first, but the more I kind of smelled it, and the more I listened to Jean-Claude Elena talk about it, and the more I kind of got this feeling that it even gave him a little bit of mystical pause, like he didn't even understand what made it so special. And then the kicker for me, here's the kicker for me, is once I realized that I'm thinking that the Isoe Super and the Vetiver from one of my favorite perfumers, Bertrand Duchefort, he created Timbuktu a couple years before Terre Hermes. And I think Jean-Claude Elena kind of took this Isoe Super Vetiver thing and created his hit. This is the hit. This is the one that kind of burst Hermes onto the scene. You had kids who were 18 years old walking into a Hermes shop to buy Terre Hermes, right? Whereas before you had to be a multi-millionaire to wander into a Hermes shop, or usually care, right? They were always seen as kind of aloof and exclusive, and this is the one that kind of shot them right into the spotlight. Whether they want to be there or not is another question for another day. But this is this woody, earthy. There's a note of like this mineral. They say flintstone on Parfumo, but there's almost like this mineralic thing that you get with this dirty orange, grapefruit, peppery. The pepper and pink pepper combination comes from, there might be a little bit of pepper, but I think it also comes from this Isoe Super. It adds this peppery woodiness to it. There's a geranium leaf in here. So remember I mentioned geranium being a masculine note earlier historically. And of course the vetiver and the patchouli and the pink pepper. And benzoin, a little bit of benzoin in the base. But it has this, again, quality to kind of go in and out of you'll smell it and then you won't smell it. And then it'll come back. You'll think it's gone. Someone will walk up and say, hey, you smell great, or whatever it is. And it has that quality about it. But I'm in love with this bottle, first of all. Just this 500 ml with a sprayer. The bottle alone was enough for me to pick it up. The fact that I have 500 mils now of the vintage Terre juice is even better. So yes, Terre Hermes comes in at number 8, which you guys may be surprised it's so low. Some others may be surprised it's so high. But yes, that's kind of where I have to put it. Number 7. Number 7 is a 90s creation. And it is a creation by a trio of perfumers, Jean-Claude Elena being one. This is actually before he was in-house perfumer of Hermes. And he worked with Gilles Ramy and Bernard Bourgeois. And this is Rocabar. So Rocabar this is the original Rocabar bottle. They've now since put it in the bottle that looks like, I'll show you once we get there. But, actually it looks like this. Here, I already showed you the Rouge Hermes, but with a black cap is basically all. And so Rocabar is a spicy, woody 90s scent that I think is a brave release in the 90s, because when everyone else, and this proves, this is what I love about Hermes. This is a great example of what I love about Hermes, is because when everyone else was doing these aquatic things, you know, Aqua de Jo and all this stuff, and CK1 was a hit and all this stuff, Hermes just said, we don't give a damn about that. We're going to create whatever the hell we want. And what they created was this very spicy, woody fragrance. There's a little bit of 90s freshness in here. They didn't completely say, you know, screw you guys. They somewhat, maybe they looked out of the corner of the eye. They didn't give anyone any pleasure of seeing them that they looked, you know, but they took note of what was going on, and they decided to just add a little bit of freshness in here, but none of the watery aquatics of the 90s that were going on. And in 1998, they released Roca Bar, and this came blanketed. I don't have the original blanket anymore, but this came with a blanket, like a horse, like you would put an Hermes blanket over your horse when it's kind of cold outside so they stay warm. This came wrapped in this blanket. And you can almost see there's like this barbed wire, keep the animals in the pen thing going around. And this is spicy and woody, basically, and green. And if Equipage feels like you're outside, and I'm always a little iffy about wearing Equipage because it always makes me feel a little strange, this is being outdoors, but I enjoy the wear much more. You do get a little bit of freshness from the juniper, herbal, coriander, lemon and bergamot adds a little citrus, but to me, it's all about the notes like cedar and cypress and cardamom and spices and this benzoin and patchouli and oak moss and old school carnation, you know, a little bit of violet, a little bit of delicacy, because violet's a very delicate flower, you know. If you're walking in the woods, you could step on a violet and never even know it, right? I mean, it's a small flower. There's a little bit of this delicacy in here, but mostly it's rough and tumble and woody. And, you know, think of, imagine taking that blanket that was around here and making like a lumberjack shirt out of it. That's what I think about with Rocabar. Someone who's an outdoorsman, someone who's going to cut that damn tree down if it's in his way himself, right? And it has this fir, this benzoin, a little bit of warmth of the benzoin with oak moss and patchouli and vanilla. And it really does have this green, you know, outdoor feeling, being in a forest, more so than even Equipage for me. And I've heard Chris from Scentland say that this really reminds him of being in like this horse stable. Like there's this animalic horse stable smell. I don't get that. I don't get. I get more of this outdoor feeling, you know, the greenness of being outdoors. Maybe slightly balsamic, maybe slightly ambery, but mostly woody and spicy. And the fact that they released this in the middle of the 90s, you know, hat tip to them. Is it my favorite Hermes? No, obviously not. That's why it's ranked number 7. But I do really appreciate Roca Bar. Okay, next is number 6. And number 6 is probably one of the greatest iris fragrances of all time, as far as just going to the store and buying one and not, you know, getting like real iris concrete, Oris concrete and smelling it, but just buying a fragrance that you can just go to the store and buy, call it a day. One of the greatest irises of all time is right here at number 6, and this is called Hiris. Now, Hiris is a creation by, originally it was created by Olivier Jacobetti in the year 1999, and originally it came in a blue bottle. Now, Hermes does very good reformulation, so I'm sure that Jean-Claude Elena played with this a little bit, but I'm extremely happy with this bottle. Unlike Rouge Hermes, which I'm not happy with, this is a keeper for me. And this is this very powdery, floral, slightly honeyed iris. It's a little bit cold, but nowhere near as cold as something like Iris Silver Mist, because of the way that Hermes uses this almondy honey thing to kind of add just a little bit of warmth to the composition. But really, this is almost like an Iris Soliflor, just supported by all these other notes. So yes, you get a little bit of amber, carnation, and coriander. You get a little bit of rose and neroli, a little bit of that almond tree and honey and vanilla and cedar. But mostly, it is iris. It's an iris. I mean, just look at that. If that doesn't scream iris to you, I mean, that's a great image of the scent, you know? Dressed up, ready to go out. Look at the cool colors she's wearing. You know, the blue is very cool feeling. And Russian Adam sent me some iris that had 80% irones in it, which is an unbelievable. I mean, people brag about having 15% irones. Francesca Bianchi brags about her orris having 15%. This is 80%, and I can tell you that this is the closest thing I've ever smelled to that. And that's one of the most beautiful smells I've ever smelled. It smells angelic, is what it honestly smells like. It smells angelic. And Hiris is the best iris fragrance I've come across that just kind of recreates that. It's so beautiful. And, you know, whenever they use iris, they don't use the flower. It's the root that they use. And sometimes it can take years. The best irises, I think, have to sit for something like 3 years to turn into what they turn into. So it's a very expensive ingredient. And, you know, Hermes does a great job capturing it at what I think is a very fair price. I think I paid $100 for this, if memory serves. $100 for $1 a mil for a fragrance of this quality, iris. I mean, you can't go wrong. Oh, it's so good. Oh, I need to wear that soon. Okay, next on the list we have the flanker to Equipage at number 5. This is Equipage Geranium. And this is the other sandalwood fragrance that has some movement to it to me. There is this something that Jean-Claude Elena did with the sandalwood note between 2010 and 2015. He made some sort of discovery. I've never really smelled anything that has this type of you know, this type of alive feeling. You know, it doesn't replicate proper sandalwood, right? It's not that. It's a synthetic smelling sandalwood to me. But somehow it's just so Jean-Claude Elena in that he uses geranium and clove. And I'll tell you, if you love this like I do, check out Jean-Claude Elena's Rouge Hermes Cuir. I think that's one of his most underrated perfumes. I am in love with Rouge Hermes Cuir. There's something about the way the geranium and the green feeling of the roses mixes with that very light leather. Oh, God. I mean, and maybe a little bit of woods in there. But here, he takes that same trick with the heavy geranium, but instead of mixing it with the greenness of the rose, and giving it, you know, it doesn't have as much of this rosy-like feel. He adds this spicy clove and this sandalwood. And the sandalwood is the trick to it all working. The sandalwood is the trick of this fragrance. I mean, not the trick, maybe the star of the show. And it's so posh, it's so elegant. If you want to wear a fragrance that stays with you and makes you feel like, you know, you're a professional, you're going to go to a professional setting and you don't want to wear anything outrageous, you want to wear something that, you know, feels very distinguished, some green and spicy touches, and the sandalwood is, you know, you're never going to be able to pin it down, ever, no matter what you do. I mean, you put your finger here, it goes over there. You think you've got it figured out, it moves on you. That is an amazing feat for a fragrance with 3 notes. And that's Jean-Claude Elena in a nutshell. Not in a nutmeg, in a nutshell. Simplicity with movement, you know? And that's what's grown. It's taken me a while to appreciate that, because at first I thought it was boring, you know? I wanted more, and I just wanted it to show itself to me. I didn't want to have to go look for it. I didn't want to put forth the effort. Jean-Claude Elena makes you put forth the effort. It's like whenever Pierre Bourdon was going to train one of his perfumers, I can't remember which one. I think it was Jean-Christophe Herault, the guy who made Aventus. And Pierre Bourdon said, he forced him to read like a volume of books, like 10 books, you know, like big fat tomes each. And he told him, if you won't read it, I won't train you. And, you know, the reason is that, and if you really want to learn, first you have to kind of be ready, right? And that's the way that that's the way I feel wearing Jean-Claude Elena's perfumes. It's like they won't open up to you until you're ready for them to. Then they'll present themselves. And that takes a little bit of experience and it takes a little bit of time. But if you're a sandalwood lover and you miss the old days of Mysore sandalwood and stuff like that, and you're okay with synthetic sandalwoods, okay? You're not going to bitch and moan about the fact that this is not real Mysore and the good old days of sandalwood are gone forever and on and on and on, right? And you're okay with some synthetic sandalwood and you want to see what a true master perfumer can do with a synthetic sandalwood note, these two. Voyage de Hermes and Equipage Geranium are just stunning. So, that was number 5. Number 4, this is a fragrance that is known as Angel Leather. And actually, this is the only one from this Hermessence line that I own. And I just went straight to the one that speaks to me. Basically, the one that is my style. I just went straight there. I ignored everything else. I've never smelled any of the other ones even, actually. I just went straight to Cuir d'Ange. Because Cuir d'Ange is my style, right? It's leathery, powdery, and he uses this leather note with hawthorn, and hawthorn makes the leather feel very white. It feels very white and pure and beige. You know, it has that light tan leather feel to it, and that's kind of what the cap looks like too, if this had a cap. But it has this almost like this texture on it that feels very. Look at the color of the juice. It's actually a great representation of the color of the leather that you're smelling. And if you know Jean-Claude Ellena's work, you will know that he actually did a fragrance for Frederic Malle called L'Eau d'Hiver. And L'Eau d'Hiver was kind of this, it was kind of this homage to a very old Guerlain. And so it was an homage to Après L'Onde. And Après L'Onde, you know, you get a little bit of this after the rain freshness, right? And hawthorn, I think, was a little part of that. And so he really figured out something with this hawthorn note, as far as I'm concerned. Hawthorn and leather with some ambrette seed and heliotrope and a little bit of violet and iris, narcissus, musk. But the trick is the leather. And the thing that no one talks about in this fragrance is you get that Jean-Claude Ellena declaration, Eau de Hermes, which is coming, okay? Eau de Hermes, remember, Jean-Claude Ellena was a student of Edmond Rudnitska. And Edmond Rudnitska made Eau de Hermes. And Jean-Claude Ellena spent his life almost paying homage to Edmond Rudnitska's work. And you get some of that Eau de Hermes cumin-y thing in the opening. It's there, 100% it's there for me. And then it goes into that leathery, iris, hawthorn, ambrette. It's a beautiful leather. Underrated, even by me. I think it's underrated. I think it deserves more love. And I'm going to try to wear this more. And I think this is a leather you can wear year-round. I mean, it has that Jean-Claude Ellena freshness to it, but it also has a little bit of that animalic leather that keeps me interested. That's number 4. Number 3 is a flanker. It's a flanker of my favorite fragrance of all time. One of my favorite fragrances of all time. And it is the great Bel Ami Vetiver. And you can see, got a little bit of a dent in this bad boy. God, I love this stuff. Oh my God. It's just, what a creation. And you know what I love about this, honestly, is that Jean-Claude Ellena put his priorities, or I shouldn't say priorities, he put his style on the back burner to create Bel Ami Vetiver. This is not the type of fragrance that Jean-Claude Ellena would create normally. It's not. 100% it's not. Jean-Claude Ellena, like I said, has this watercolored like style, ethereal and fresh, and this is the exact opposite of that. He uses heavier notes. So there is this, you know, the Bel Ami leather with the, you know, woods and civet. There's a little bit of civet in here, but just a touch, just a tiny touch. Nothing that would stop you from wearing. I would wear this all year round. The vetiver makes it The vetiver makes it, I think, more modern and more wearable in more situations to most people. Now, you guys know I love Bel Ami. And I think what he did is he added a little bit of iris, a little bit of vetiver, maybe a little bit of elemi or something to add this lemony, incensey bit. But it kept the backbone. You know, this is 10 years old now, believe it or not. This is a decade old. And what a fragrance he created here, guys. I mean, fuck. I love Bel Ami, but in any form, even its flanker, Bellamy Vetiver, comes in at number 3. Okay, top 2, and there's no surprises here. 0. If you guys know me, you know exactly how this is going to play out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Number 2 is Eau de Hermes from 1951. This is a vintage flacon. You can see the short ingredient list here. I have it decanted into a like a 100 ml spray bottle that I like to spray my fragrances. But here's the flacon, one of the most beautiful flacons you will ever see. And that's what the original Eau de Hermes, you can see I cracked it. It's one of the reasons why I decanted it is I actually dropped it and cracked the damn thing. And I was worried about it cracking all the way and the juice kind of coming out. So far it's remained. The crack hasn't gone all the way through. But I mean, I wish you could feel how thick this glass is. This is thick, thick stuff. This glass is heavy. I mean, heavy, heavy. And just a beautiful presentation. And the smell, I mean, oh God. I think this is Edmund Rudnitska's masterpiece, personally. I know a lot of people say Eau Sauvage. You hear some people say Roche Femme. For me, personally, my taste, this is it. The spices, the clover, the leather, the cinnamony, you know, spicy thing you get, almost like this red hot like opening, but it dries down to this birchy leather, and it's supposed to smell like the inside of a Birkin bag. Like, the whole point of Eau de Hermes is that they actually gave it away for free when it came out. When they commissioned this to be made in the early 50s, their thought was that they were going to just give it away. When someone bought a Birkin bag, you got a free bottle of Eau de Hermes that you could just spray the inside of your bag with if it lost that new bag smell, right? And then, to their surprise, people started... What a brilliant spice combination. Oh, fuck. God, I love this stuff. It's hard for me to put this at 2 because honestly, this probably should be 1, but I love number 1 so much that there's no way I could ever put it at anything but number 1. But this could easily be number 1. Honest. I mean, if you guys wake up one day and this is number 1, don't be surprised. It is that good. It is Eau de Hermes, man. So people started like asking for it. They started clamoring for it. They wanted Eau de Hermes. And so that's when Hermes was shocked that they could sell it. I mean, as a product. They thought before, no way, no one would pay for this. We're not a perfume company, we're a leather company, right? To their surprise, people wanted the perfume. And finally, number 1, and again, if you know me, you know this is zero surprise. This is this and Antaeus go back and forth, I would say, is my favorite fragrance in my mind. This is Bel Ami. So this is what the bottle in between the, you know, original shaker bottle, which I'll show you in just a second, and the newer bottles, which look like this. This is the bottle that was kind of in the middle of these presentations, if you will. And this is, I mean, thank God I have 4 bottles of this stuff because I never want to be without it, ever. Oh, it's just, to me, it's the perfect leather for me, for my taste, you know? The way that the construction is, it's in your face, okay? Just fits my personality perfectly because it's wood and leather and smoke and castoreum, and it has this waxy styrax thing that blends with the woody leatheriness. There's a little bit of vetiver. There's, of course, oak moss. It smells like the inside of... So this is what the vintage... this is what the first formulation box looks like. This is a 200 mil, thank God. Like I said, I never want to be without this stuff. The inside of the box looks like this. And this is a splash that I got from Italy. There's a ton of vintage perfume in Italy. A ton. This is the original. They call this the shaker bottle because it looks like a shaker for drinks or something. And this was the original shaker. And this version is a little more harsh to my nose. It's maybe a little less refined. You know, I feel like maybe Jean-Claude Elena played with this a bit to refine it just a little bit. You know, it has that... It feels like you can almost smell the road to becoming Bel Ami Vetiver. You know, like it's on a... Bel Ami is kind of on its path to finally become Bel Ami Vetiver. But I love both versions. The only one I would avoid is the new one. If you're going to go for the new one, just go for the Bellamy Vetiver, in my opinion. This might be my favorite flanker of all time. Oh, I mean, all time, you know. It is, oh, fuck me, man. What a fragrance. I mean, the top three, Bellamy Vetiver, Bellamy, Eau de Hermes, some of my favorite fragrances of all time. I could wear these. I could just wear these nonstop, probably, and never get bored. I mean, I don't have a signature scent, but you know, if I had to pick a brand where I could only wear fragrances from that brand, even though the quantity of Hermes fragrances aren't up against the number of other houses that you've seen, larger lists, let's say, the quality of their perfumes is bar none. I mean, it's a house I could wear exclusively, and I think I could never get bored. You know, they have that type of grasp on me. And for the longest time, I said Bel Ami is my favorite fragrance of all time, just because you know, and maybe right now it is. Every time I smell, if I smell Antaeus, though, I'll say, oh, wait a minute, it's Antaeus. When I smell Bel Ami, I'm like, how can I put Antaeus above Bel Ami, you know? So it's back and forth for me. But yes, I think Bel Ami means beautiful friend, and Hermes feels like a perfume, like a brand that's there for us as a beautiful friend, as frag heads. You know, they're that kind of brand, and I'm excited to see what they do in the future. I may even try to pick up a bottle of Gallo if I can find a partial or something at a good price. I need a professional splitter. Someone send me a professional splitter, if you will. I need a professional splitter in my life. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what your favorite Hermes fragrances are that I did not mention in the list. Let me know what your favorites are from the list. Like the video for the stupid YouTube algorithm before you go, and leave a comment. I love seeing your faces down below and hearing your thoughts. And hope to catch you next time. Cheers. Bye, guys.